The NASCAR Cup Series heads to Darlington National Raceway for the 2022 Southern 500 and the race to kick off the 2022 NASCAR playoffs. And we see a lot of playoff drama and an upset to kick off the 2022 playoffs. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. I just got done watching NASCAR Cup Series race from Darlington National Raceway, the 2022 Southern 500. We've got a lot to talk about from this race. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So, for the green flag drop in today's race, BJ McLeod and Daniel Suarez would have to start at the rear. BJ basically for changing something, and Daniel Suarez failed inspection 3 times, and he would have to do a pass-through penalty once the green flag dropped. So at the start of the race, he had Joey Logano lead the field from the outside, with Cristobal on the inside, and Joey Logano and Cristobal were side by side for the first couple laps. Meanwhile, Daniel Suarez came down the road to basically serve his pass-through penalty, but kept going on. Eventually, after a couple laps, Logano got around Cristobal to get the race lead and will keep the lead. Then the first caution race come out lap number 6 for rain on the front stretch, something we've dealt pretty much for the last 4 or 5 straight races. Basically, rain would come onto the front stretch. Luckily, luckily at the time, and thank God for this, it wasn't a big rainstorm. It was just a little quick pop-up shower. Luckily, eventually able to go back racing. But Kevin Harvick actually had radio that basically his helmet blower was basically blowing really, really hot air during that time. But then eventually, we basically went back racing on lap 17 with Logano leading the field from the outside and Cristobal on the inside. And Joey Logano got a really, really strong run and was able to keep the race lead. Logano would hold on to the lead over Cristobal, and then we got to the competition caution at lap 36. They extended from 25 to 35, and they threw the competition yellow. So then all leaders would come down pit road, and all of them would take 4 tires. Kyle Busch would have a really, really bad pit stop on pit road. Also, Kevin Harvick had a terrible pit stop, basically with a tire loose bit backed up before he basically got out of pit road. And then basically on the restart, Joey Logano lead the field from the outside with William Byron on the inside, and Joey Logano got a great restart and was able to basically keep the race lead. There was some really solid racing in the middle of the pack between Ross Chastain and Ryan Blaney. Ross Chastain basically pulled the slide job on Ryan Blaney. Then eventually we stayed green for a little bit of time. Basically, William Byron was really catching Joey Logano on the long run. Logano's car, especially early in this race, was really, really terrible on the short run. And eventually William Byron closed up, and a few laps later got around Joey Logano for the race lead. And some of the broadcasters did not basically note throughout the race, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. actually got into the outside wall really, really hard and came down the road and went many, many laps down. Then green flag pit stops started happening in stage number 1 for Mark Truex Jr., the first to come down pit road. Then Joey Logano came down pit road and had major issues and actually lost a lot of time on pit road. It would fall all the way back to 11th. Meanwhile, Kyle Larson would be the next playoff driver basically to run into troubles. Kyle Larson had potentially no power in the car, had a possible engine failure, and ended up going 3 laps down. Luckily for him, once he came back on the racetrack, he said everything was fine, but was 3 laps down. Might have been some error codes basically on the dash. We're not entirely sure what exactly happened, but Kyle Larson was able to run some really competitive times, but he was 3 laps down. And then we went green pretty much through the end of stage number 1. And then with 2 or 3 laps to go in stage 1 with William Byron having the race lead, Chase Elliott would basically run into trouble. Going into turn number 1, he basically got loose and backed into the outside wall really, really hard, bringing out the second or third caution of the day. Chase Briscoe really had nowhere to go as well, and he ran into the back of them. Chase Elliott, unfortunately, would fall out of this race because he basically, with a 10-minute damage vehicle clock policy, he unfortunately would end up rolling out of the race and finishing last. Because this, William Byron, who got in the lead off of pit road after Logano's issues, he would come off the corner and win stage number 1. Then all leaders would come down pit road, and William Byron would have a little bit slower pit stop, and Kyle Busch would win the race off pit road. So on the restart, Kyle Busch lead the field from the outside, and Denny Hamlin on the inside, and Kyle Busch got a really, really good run and was able to clear for the race lead. Meanwhile, William Byron radioed to his crew basically saying he may have had some very similar issues what Kyle Larson had. It was starting to complain about an engine issue, but luckily there was no engine issues for William Byron. Then a little bit into the run, Denny Hamlin's car seemed a lot better than Kyle Busch's on the long run, and he tried to close on Kyle Busch for the race lead, but Kyle Busch is able to hold off. Then once again, green flag pit stop started happening with Kyle Busch coming down pit road. Then Denny Hamlin came back down pit road, and Kyle Busch was able to maintain the lead. Meanwhile, Ross Chastain was having a really strong run in this race after cut some really, really bad runs. Ross Chastain would have to come back down pit road for a second time for a possible loose wheel. And then he came back down pit road again after it's basically diagnosed that there had been some damaged dry pins, and they were able to fix that and would end up going 2 to 4 laps down. We stayed green for a little bit, Kyle Busch leading, and then Todd Gillen actually spun on turn number 2 on lap 79, just got loose. I think he basically had broken basically the tailpipe or whatever was on the back of the car, and would bring out the caution. And then all leaders would come down pit road, and Kyle Busch would win the race off pit road. So on the restart, Kyle Busch lead the field from the outside, and Joey Logano on the inside, and Kyle Busch got a really strong run going into turn 1 and was able to clear for the race lead. Then a few laps later, Kyle Larson would end up basically spinning off at turn number 4 from 28th position, just got loose in the corner, and would end up spinning out, bringing out the caution in the race. And then we had a little bit of strategy in this race where Corey LaJoie decided to basically stay out on the racetrack while the rest leaders would come down pit road. So because of that, on the restart, you had Corey LaJoie leading the field from the outside and Kyle Busch on the inside. Corey LaJoie would hold on for a few corners, but then eventually Kyle Busch got around him and took the race lead in turn number 3. Then we had Daniel Suarez getting the outside wall from basically turn from 7th position, but was luckily able to continue going. And then eventually Mark Truex Jr., who really been charging up toward the front in the middle portion of this race, he got around Kyle Busch to take the race lead. Then around 10 laps later, on lap 218, Cody Ware basically spun in turn number 4, just got loose in the corner and spun out on his own, bringing out the caution. Then all leaders would come down pit road, but they all would take 4 tires, and we had Kyle Busch basically put on scuffed tires. And then basically all the cars that had not pitted, they took the wave around. So on the restart, you had Kyle Busch leading the field from the outside and Mark Truex Jr. on the inside. And Mark Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch had a really, really strong restart and a really good battle basically for the race lead. And Kyle Busch cleared Mark Truex Jr. to get the race lead. You had some really crazy racing going on around 6 or 7 between Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, William Byron. They were battling for around 4th or 5th position. Had a great battle. I think eventually Byron or Bell got past all of them. But at this point, Kyle Busch had basically pulled out to about a half a second lead over Mark Truex Jr., and coming off the corner, he would win stage number 2. Meanwhile, Kyle Larson actually had basically gained all of his laps back at this point. He actually would end up getting the free pass under the caution. So then all leaders would come down pit road. Kyle Busch actually would keep the lead off of pit road and basically would restart with the lead on lap 237. So on the restart, Kyle Busch lead the field from the outside with Joey Logano on the inside, and Kyle Busch got a really, really good restart and was able to keep the race lead over Joey Logano. Then we saw some green flag pit stops, guys like around 251, guys like Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon. You had then a lot of the rest of the leaders basically start coming down pit road. And while we had the middle run of the green flag pit stops in the final stage, with around 90 laps to go, a major moment and a major shift of this race would end up happening. Kevin Harvick, who was having a really, really strong run in the race, running in the top 10, recovering from some issues early in the race, his crush panels, his rocker panels, would basically end up catching on fire. And it took NASCAR a little bit of time to throw the caution, a little bit unacceptable how long it took for them to throw the caution. He would basically pull to a stop and would bring out the caution in this race. Major playoff implications for Kevin Harvick, and this would take him out of contention in this race, and basically he would fall out because of that. And his interview was not very good, and he was very, very angry in his post-race interview, justifiably so. Because of this, all the cars that basically were on the lead lap during the green flag pit stops, Kyle Busch, Mark Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Michael Bedell, Ty Gibbs, and Brad Keselowski, they would all end up coming down pit road. Meanwhile, Daniel Suarez during the green flag pit stops, he would basically get a penalty and would not be wave around eligible. So then all the guys would get the wave around. And there are the 83 to 84 laps to go. We go back racing with Kyle Busch leading the field from the outside and Denny Hamlin on the inside. And Kyle Busch got a really good restart and held for Mark Truex Jr. and was able to end up keeping the race lead. Then we saw a battle between Mark Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch with around 70 laps to go. And then Kyle Busch let Mark Truex Jr. go by to end up getting the race lead. And then we started seeing potential final green flag pit stops around 47 laps to go, with Mark Truex Jr. coming down pit road, then Kyle Busch coming down pit road, and then Denny Hamlin would stay on the track for a few laps, a little bit of interesting strategy to say the least, where he end up staying out, and then eventually a few laps later, pitted from the lead. Then Denny Hamlin basically 15 seconds behind it, and Martin Truex Jr. was about 2 seconds or 3 seconds ahead of Kyle Busch. Meanwhile, with 34 laps to go, Martin Truex Jr., who had the lead at the time, radioed to the pit crew that there was some power steering issues and was starting to have some major power steering problems. And then eventually he was starting to slow, and the car started blowing up, and he would come down pit road a few laps later, and Kyle Busch got around Martin Truex Jr. and passed him for the race lead. And then the final caution of the race would come out with 27 or 28 to go. By the way, back to Martin Truex Jr. He unfortunately would fall out of the race. Tough break for Martin Truex Jr. Overheating issues. Something they'll have to work on in this car for sure. But tough break for Martin Truex Jr. And then with 28 laps to go in this race, Cody Wurr basically stopped in turn number 3 after getting to the outside wall for the second time in the last 15 or 20 laps and say the hits were really hard on the radio, bringing out the final caution of this race. Then the leaders would end up coming down pit road with 26 laps to go, with Kyle Busch ending up keeping the lead off of pit road. Meanwhile, Erik Jones actually ended up getting into second position. And then when they were getting ready to go back racing with around 23 to 24 laps to go, Kyle Busch, who was leading in the race, his engine let go and his engine blew up with 24 laps to go as they were coming to the restart. Major implications and major tough break for Kyle Busch, who was easily probably going to win the race, had the best car in the race. It's a shame. Blows an engine, and basically his post-race interview actually was not terrible, all things considered. He wasn't angry in his post-race interview. As we already know, the contract negotiations, we'll be talking more about that tomorrow on the channel, by the way. But Kyle Busch would unfortunately fall out of this race. Because of this, Erik Jones would actually end up being the race leader on the restart with 20 laps to go. So Erik Jones had a great restart, got a good push from Denny Hamlin, and he was able to keep the race lead. Meanwhile, Erik Jones really was doing a really good job on the restart. Denny Hamlin tried to find ways to close. Erik Jones was better in turn number 2, while Denny Hamlin was better in turn number 3, and then turn number 4. And then with 3 to 4 laps to go in this race, Denny Hamlin was really catching Erik Jones near the end, and that was thanks to Chase Briscoe, who kind of held him up just a little bit, and it was about 0.2 seconds. As we're coming to the white flag, Denny Hamlin was 0.4 seconds back of Erik Jones, and in going into turn 2, they were really close together, about 2 to 3 tenths a second. As it came turn number 3, Denny Hamlin tried to send it to Erik Jones, but it would not be enough. And coming off the final corner, in very shocking fashion, Erik Jones comes off the corner to pick up his first win of the 2022 season, his first win at Petty GMS Motorsports, the first win for the 43 car since 2014, and Erik Jones' first win in the Cup Series since the 2019 Southern 500, and shocks the playoff field and becomes the 17th driver to win in 2022. Absolutely am so happy for Erik Jones and so happy for him. Erik Jones has been performing so incredibly well, has been fast all of the 2022 season, but has just been so close so many times to having pace. I remember Auto Club earlier this year where Erik Jones was super quick. And to finally see Erik Jones go to victory lane for the first time with Petty GMS, this team has so much potential. And the first time it hasn't been for them a rain-shortened win since I think 1999 with John Andretti. So just so incredible to see the second time the 43 car has won, and also the 200th win for the 43, the amazing 43 car. So massive congratulations to Erik Jones on finally picking up a victory. It's just so incredible to see that he's your winner of the 2022 Southern 500. So now we're going to go and talk about the race results. I'll let you know my score of today's race, and then we're going to go ahead and also take a look at the playoff standings as well after race number 1. So Erik Jones picks up the victory. Denny Hamlin finishes second. Denny Hamlin with a really awesome run tonight. I think he had a good enough car to win this race. Unfortunately, just didn't have enough time to get around Erik Jones near the end. But still an amazing run for Denny Hamlin and going to be in a really good position going into the future races of the playoffs. Great run from Denny Hamlin in second. Tyler Reddick finishes third. Reddick had a top 10 car most of the night and salvages and actually does a really good job ending up third. Had a fantastic race, a third place run. That's what he's going to need to do if he's going to have a chance at winning the championship. He gets a really strong third place finish. Great run from Tyler Reddick. Joey Logano finishes fourth. Logano's car was really good in the beginning, but the car really fell off in the second half and was for a lot of race outside the top 10, but salvages a top 5 run. He's been really consistent, hasn't finished outside the top 12 or 13 in the last 6 races. That consistency is really going to be an important thing. Great run from Joey Logano. Christopher Bell, very solid run in 5th position. Bell ran top 10 a majority of the evening in that 20 car, was up front early, kind of fell back, but still ends up finishing 5th. Good run from Christopher Bell. Michael McDowell finished 6th. How about Michael McDowell getting a 6th place finish? He kind of got helped by the strategies a little bit, but he ran top 15 pretty much the whole entire race and was generally really, really good. And this is a track where he hasn't ran the greatest at. So to see him get a top 10 and finish 6th is great to see. Amazing run for Michael McDowell in 6th. Brad Keselowski finished 7th. He also got kind of helped by the strategy, but Brad Keselowski ran top 20 most of the evening and gets an amazing run in 7th place. Great run from Brad Keselowski. William Byron gets a very solid run in 8th place finish. Bubba Wallace finishes 9th. Another top 10 for Bubba Wallace. This team has been really doing a great job over these last few weeks. They're starting a new stretch. The 45 team has run top 20. Bubba really ran the last race in the top 10 and had genuine top 10 speed most of the evening. Lost some ground near the end of the race, but a great and fantastic run from Bubba Wallace. At the end of the day, he finishes in 9th. Alex Bowman with a very solid top 10 finish. Solid run for Bowman. Only second top 10 really in the last 10 or 11 races. So good to see Alex Bowman recover. Eric Almirola ends up recovering after really running the last race outside the top 20 and struggling. He finishes 11th. Kyle Larson finishes 12th. If you would have told me Kyle Larson would have finished 12th after being 4 laps down in this race, after spinning out, having potential engine issues, I would have laughed at you. Amazing recovery from Kyle Larson tonight. That's how you win championships. You salvage what you can do, ends up finishing 12th. The car was not good, but he salvages a very solid 12th place finish. I had picked him coming into the weekend, but does salvage a 12th place run. Ryan Blaney fell back near the end. He finishes in 13th. Not a bad run, but a decent enough run to keep himself in contention. Cole Custer finished 14th. Got to give credit to Cole Custer. I think he's been slowly but surely improving in the second half of the season. Had a decent run and got a top 15 and ran a last race in the top 10 as well. Ty Gibbs finished 15th. Ty Gibbs struggled early, but bounced back and ended up finishing the top 15. Saw a run from Ty Gibbs in the 23. Austin Cindric finishes in 16th. Decent run, but not a great run. Austin Dillon finished 17th in a car that he said was absolutely killed and terrible. He ended up finishing 17th. Daniel Suarez, who had a speeding penalty, he finishes in 18th. Justin Haley finishes in 19th. Ross Chastain finishes in 20th position. Harrison Burton 21st. Ty Dillon finishes 22nd. Man, Ross Chastain bounced back a little bit to 20th, by the way. Ty Dillon 22nd. Daniel Hemrick finishes 23rd. Corey LaJoie, after being really strong early in the race, had some fuel pump problems near the end. He finished 24th. Landon Castle finished 25th. Chris Buescher finishes 26th. Chase Briscoe finishes 27th. Todd Gilliland 28th. B.J. McLeod finishes in 29th. Kyle Busch, after his engine failure, major tough break, he finishes 30th. Still got a lot of points in the race, but lost a lot of points as well. Mark Truex Jr. finishes 31st. Cody Ware finishes 32nd. Kevin Harvick finishes 33rd. J.J. Lee finishes 34th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finishes 35th. And finishing last in 36th is Chase Elliott. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the playoff standings after the first race of the round of 16. Alright, so now let's take a look at the playoff standings after the first race of the round of 16. So Joey Logano now sits 38 points above the cutoff line. William Byron second, 32 above. Denny Hamlin is third, 30 above. Christopher Bell is fourth, 28th above. Fifth is Tyler Reddick, 23 above. Ryan Blaney is sixth, 20 above. Kyle Larson ends up salvaging, being 17 above. He could have been below after this race. He is 17 above. Ross Chastain currently sits 15 above. Chase Elliott, despite his issues and not really completing, ended up finishing last. He is 14 points above the cutoff line. Alex Bowman is 10th, 5 above. Kyle Busch, after his engine failure, is still above the cutoff line, 8 above. And Daniel Suarez is right now last in 12th, 2 points above. So the 4 guys below, Austin Cindric is 2 below the cutoff line. Austin Dillon is 14th, 4 below. Chase Briscoe is 15th, 10 below. And then finally, Kevin Harvick is last, 13 below the cutoff line. Going into the next 2 races, anyone is still anybody's game at this point. How crazy and unpredictable the first race was. Definitely going to be really interesting to see what happens going down the road. So now I want to talk about my thoughts on today's race and give you my score on tonight's Southern 500. Absolutely fantastic race from start to finish. Great racing from the beginning. It was a little bit slow in the beginning, slow process going, but near the end, you had a fantastic finish, a lot of side-by-side racing. The Southern 500 is one of my favorite. In fact, it is my personal favorite crown jewel race. It's because of this kind of stuff where you never know what's going to happen until the end, and we saw a fantastic race. I am giving today's Southern 500 a 9.5 out of 10. The only thing I really kind of want to see is a little more of that beginning where it kind of wanted a little more there. But other than that, I thought this was a fantastic race, and a 9.5 out of 10 is my score for tonight's Southern 500. So anyway, that is going to be for today's NASCAR Cup Series race before the 2022 Southern 500. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. List description below over that, and comment your thoughts on tonight's Southern 500. What are your thoughts on tonight's Southern 500? Let me know below. Let me know your score in the comments below, and congratulate Erik Jones on picking up an upset victory in the 2022 Southern 500. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have a NASCAR news video recapping stuff from the weekend, and we'll probably have some stuff from this past race, discuss probably some of the parts failure issues that I'll probably discuss tomorrow. We'll discuss. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching tonight's race review, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.